Good morning, friends. We will try to finish lecture with references. Uh, Two quotations I shared with you. Quotation 1: the ultimate possibility of human self-emancipation is related with Marx's philosophical premise about the initial creation of the world by man. This is from selected works of Karl Marx, Volume 2, page 403. Now, I have shared with you how Karl Marx has been wrongly understood because of his untimely death in 1883. Until then, he had published only one book, Capital Volume 1, and then there was a joint publication with Friedrich Engels, the Manifesto of the Communist Party. All other works in the name of Karl Marx was edited and published, rather was collected, edited and published by his long-time companion and friend and collaborator Friedrich Engels. Now, I have already shared with you how Marx did not believe in historical materialism, but he definitely had a materialist epistemology of understanding man, society, and history. To understand his point, I am giving you second quotation. This is from German Ideology, page 58. And I am quoting Karl Marx in his own words. And the quotation is, if man is a product of material conditions, comma, he, that is man, can never emancipate himself from their impact. Full stop. If the world is not of man's own making, comma, how can he change it? Question mark. Quotation ends. I will also share with you Karl Lovitz, his German book on Karl Marx, page 7. Marx criticized the mechanic. I am also quoting an author whose name is Karl Lovitz, K-A-R-L. Karl Lovitz, L-O-W-I-T-H, 1962. His book in German language on Karl Marx, page 7. I am just translating the German into English. Marx criticized the mechanistic materialism which resurfaced after his death in the writings of Engels, Plekhanov, Kautsky, and Lenin. Now, what is Karl Marx's view of man or homo faber? In your course outline, I have given a reading by Erich Fromm, E-R-I-C-H, Erich Fromm, F-R-O-M-M, Marxist Concept of Man, which he had taken from economic and philosophical manuscripts. In chapter 4, Erich Fromm is writing about the nature of man. There are two perspectives of man according to Erich Fromm. The first was a concept which was prevalent before Karl Marx was writing, and I am quoting Erich Fromm: there is no such thing as the nature of man, comma, there is no such thing as the nature of man, comma, that man at birth is like a blank sheet of paper on which the culture writes its text. This is the view which was prevalent before Karl Marx started academic writing. Should I repeat, or it is sufficient? There is no such thing as the nature of man, comma, that man at birth is like a blank sheet of paper on which the culture writes its text, T-E-X-T, text. Now, according to Erich Fromm, Marx believed, and I am quoting him, man qua man, man in capitals M-A-N, qua, Q-U-A, qua, man, in small letters M-A-N. Man qua man is a recognizable and ascertainable entity, semicolon, that man can be defined as man, that man can be defined as man not only biologically, comma, anatomically and physiologically, but also psychologically. And then this was Erich Fromm on behalf of Karl Marx. Then Erich Fromm gives us three important quotations from Karl Marx. First, there is a human nature in general in history. There is a human nature in general in history. Second quotation, human nature is modified in each historical epoch. Third quotation, the essence of man is no abstraction inherent in each separate individual. Now, this is Marxist concept of man. The first two you have written. The third quotation is, the essence of man is no abstraction inherent in each separate individual. Now I am not explaining these three lines because when I will deal with Durkheimian concept of, man, I will take it up again. Now, Marx said, according to Edict from, human drives, that is hunger and the sexual urge, are integral part of human nature. I am repeating, human drives is the Marxist concept in place of Newton's concept of theory of nature. In other words, Isaac Newton was concerned how planets move, what is the nature of planet and how they do move, and then he gave theory of gravitation. In the same way, Karl Marx is trying to explain, to use, the Weberian concept of, human action or social action, what drives human beings to act in a particular way. And that particular way, according to Marx, will be always social. That particular drive will be always social, according to Emile Durkheim as well. And this view is also shared by Sigmund Freud in his book Civilization and its Discontent. Now I am coming to Erich Fromm's reading of Karl Marx's concept of man. Now why I am taking him? Because like Marx, he is also a Jew, social scientist. Durkheim is also a Jew. They had one cultural background and they knew the same language, Hebrew. Secondly, they all knew three languages, Hebrew, German and French, besides the English. Therefore, they are more reliable translators of Marx's own writings in Hebrew and German. Okay, friends. Human drives, that is hunger and the sexual urge, are integral part of human nature, but these are modified with each historical period. But there is a definite shift from the early Marxist notion of man and the Marxist notion of man. What was the early notion of man before Marx was writing? That there is no such thing as the nature of man. Marx said, no, there is a nature of man which we can discern from the writing of history. Then the second view before Marx was that man at birth is like a blank sheet of paper. Marx said no. Man, even at birth time, is not a blank sheet of paper on which the culture writes its text. Marx agrees with the last, that to some extent, culture or the mode of production and the relations of productions or the social formations modify the nature of man, but we cannot say that there is no nature of man as a species. Now I will read the whole paragraph and then everything will be clear to you. I am repeating from the beginning. Human drives, hunger and the sexual urge are integral part of human nature, but these are modified with each historical period. Human nature is changed in form and direction to suit certain social structures and certain conditions of production and communication. For example, Marx said, the need for money is a special need. The need for money is a special need produced by the capitalistic structure of society. According to Marx, this need for money is inhuman, depraved, unnatural, and imaginary appetite. And then Marx concludes, the human brain structure has remained the same since the dawn of history. Now, you must be clear what is at stake. What is at stake when man is conceptualized by Max Weber, Emil Durkheim, and Karl Marx. Max Weber shares the notion of man which was prevalent before Karl Marx was writing. In other words, Max Weber believed that there is no nature of man. There is no nature of man which is inherent in man at the time of birth. Weber believed that there is no such thing as the nature of man, that man at birth is like a blank sheet of paper on which the culture writes its text. This is Max Weber's belief about the nature of man, but he had not written it explicitly. Therefore, yesterday I said, Max Weber evades this question of ontology of man, society, etc. There is no concept of man in Max Weber, number one. Number two, there is no concept of society in Max Weber. He evades this question. Now, why he evaded this question? Very simple. He was not a sociologist by training, and he never pursued sociology as a career or vocation. What he pursued? He pursued politics, and therefore he had got a celebrated essay which is very, very good. And I like it. This is simply A plus. The man knew what is politics theoretically. The man knew what is politics through his participation in politics, that is empirically, experientially. And then the man wrote this essay after he retired from politics. Therefore, this is a reflexive essay on politics. Therefore, I will equate his small article, or rather booklet now, Science as a Vocation and Politics as Vocation. These two essays are as good, according to me. And I told you I am a student of sociology. I am not a professor of sociology or teacher of sociology. I am like one of you. You know, I am like one of you. You are also a student. I am also a student. Therefore, you know, what is my problem, which is not the problem of Karl Marx or Max Weber. Because in case Max Weber was sharing his view with a class of fellow students or fellow sociologists, then anybody would have asked this question: what is your concept of man? What is your concept of society? But when you are not teaching, or when you are not communicating with your fellow professionals or vocationals, when you are doing armchair philosophy, when you are doing armchair, history writing, when you are doing armchair sociological writing, you have this luxury to not answer the curiosity, the anxiety, the question, the challenge of your fellow students or fellow sociologists. Are you getting my point? Therefore, Durkheim was a student of sociology like me. He was also, a practicing sociologist like me. He never wrote any of his work, including his PhD thesis, The Division of Labor in Society, in isolation. He was writing with a team. He was discussing with a team. He was editor of a journal in French and a sociology. Therefore, each and every concept of Durkheim was debated and discussed and challenged and re-answered in the group which was, gathering, which was growing under the banyan tree called Emile Durkheim. Therefore, Durkheim had a limitation of not indulging in armchair philosophy. He was a responsible sociologist, not because of choice, but also because of compulsion. When you are writing for a group or in a group, you have to be answerable to your readers, to your audience, to your fellows. But this was the luxury of, Max Weber, that he was writing in isolation as a retired politician, as a retired techno-scientist. He had got another article, Science as a Vocation, but he was not a scientist. He was not trained in science. He was trained in engineering. And I'm not denying that engineering is the child of science. If there is no science, there cannot be an engineering, but engineering is a technology. Science is something else. What is science? Science is a theory of knowledge about nature, physical reality, and cosmos. What is engineering? Engineering is mechanics applied into the world of industry and market. Therefore, although Max Weber believed in the pre-Marxist concept of man and society, he did not write it as a responsible academician. Now later on, many people have deconstructed his notion of man, and they say Marx believed in homo faber, man is a tool-making animal. Durkheim believed in a concept of man which is called homo duplex, which I will share with you just now. In the same way, Max Weber believed in homo economicus. Man is a market animal. Man is economic by nature. This is a view which is rooted in a particular historical epoch of industrial capitalism prevalent in his mother's country, that is England, and his father's country, that is Germany. Now let us take one author. His name is T. Campbell. T for Tata, Campbell, Campbell. In 1981, he wrote a book, 7 Theories of Human Society, which was published by Clarendon Press, Oxford. And here he is trying to defend Weberian concept of man. I am reading for your convenience. Which I had read earlier also, but in case I read it just now, it will make more sense. Unlike Karl Marx and Emil Durkheim, there is no direct answer about the nature of man or the concept of society in Max Weber. In other words, in Weberian sociology, the question of epistemology is more important or primary than the question of ontology. What does it mean? It means that for Max Weber, theory of ontology or ultimate reality or reality as it is in itself or noumena, Noumena, noumena is at best a secondary question. Max Weber's theory of man emerged the best in the 4 types of human action. A, goal rational action or instrumental rationality of a bureaucrat or investor in the stock market. I am repeating, Max Weber's theory of man emerged the best in the 4 types of human action. A, goal rational action or instrumental rationality of a bureaucrat or investor in the stock market. Full stop. It is rational action with a selfish motive. Full stop. It is the rational organization of time and space, comma, capital and labor in an industrial factory, modern liberal democratic state, and the market in Western industrialized Europe and its colonies. B. Value rational action of a Calvinist philanthropist or the vocations of scientists and politicians in Western Europe, especially in Lutheran Germany. C. Charismatic action or emotional or affective action of leaders like John Calvin, Benjamin Franklin, Napoleon, General Nelson. D. Traditional action of human beings in the non-Western European societies and the followers of Catholic Church, Orthodox Church, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, and traditional Judaism. According to Weber, primarily in his book Sociology of Religion, but also in the controversial publication of his preliminary notes for writing his Economy and Society, namely The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, these world religions' goal were primarily to achieve salvation beyond the world. As a result, the highest value was attached with other worldly asceticism. Whereas Protestant theologians, primarily John Calvin, promoted a unique way of getting salvation within the world itself, namely this worldly asceticism. If we deconstruct Weberian sociology, the following conclusions can be derived. This is from my diary. This is not from Campbell. If we deconstruct Weberian sociology, the following conclusions can be derived. A. Like Immanuel Kant, Max Weber believed that epistemology or theory of knowledge is more important than ontology or theory of truth and reality. Now, this I have shared again and again. Now I am explaining what I meant by this when I was sharing this with you. For traditional philosophers like Plato and his contemporary followers like Martin Heidegger, Anand Kentish Kumaraswamy, John Ruskin, or Michel Foucault, truth includes the whole reality of the cosmos, or what Kant said, noumena, Noumena, which includes human beings as an integral part. On the other hand, for Weber, market of modern industrial society is the ultimate social reality and human social action has to be meaningful only in the instrumental world of market relationships, which is protected by the state, ably represented by charismatic elected leaders as well as by the rational legal bureaucracy. Now, I have shared with you my reading of Karl Marx and Max Weber view of man. Let us come to Durkheim. Durkheimian concept of man is called homo duplex. For the first time, he developed this concept of homo duplex in an article published in the journal he was editing, NA Sociology. But now this is also available in a book jointly written by Emile Durkheim and Stephen Lukes. Not jointly written, the book is Emile Durkheim's, but he had arranged and compiled and this was translated into English by W.D. Halls in November 1982, and it was published by Macmillan. The name of the book may sound you familiar. The name of the book is The Rules of Sociological Method and Selected Texts on Sociology and its Method. That is, this is the new version or new edition of Rules of Sociological Method, in which Stephen Lukes had compiled related article of Durkheim, which was not earlier available in the English language or even in French in the book form. Therefore, in case you read this book, you will have this concept of homo duplex. Now, what is the view of homo duplex? D-U-P-L-E-X, homo, H-O-M-O. According to Durkheim, a man, on the one hand, is a biological organism driven by instincts with desire and appetite, and on the other hand, man is being led by morality and other elements generated by society. I am repeating, a man on the one hand is a biological organism driven by instincts with desire and appetite, and on the other hand is being led by morality and other elements generated by society. And then he writes, what allows a person to go beyond the animal nature? I am repeating, what allows a person to go beyond the animal nature is the most common religion, And here you must remember, religion for Emile Durkheim is not Christianity or Judaism, Hinduism or Islam, Buddhism or Confucianism or Marxism. These are particular religions. Durkheim is talking about common religion. What is common in all religions? And according to Durkheim, both in the division of labor in society as well as in the elementary forms of religious life, for Durkheim, the common religion of man is a moral community. A moral community or ethical community for Durkheim is a religion. It is organized around sacred and profane. We will discuss these things here. Just I am trying to hint at that here by religion he meant moral community, and he said moral community is a church, not church of the Christians, but any organizing mechanism. It can be a temple, it can be a mosque, it can be a synagogue, it can be also the place where tribal people celebrate animism. It can be also a 26th January and 15th August for independent India. Moral community, the sacred and the profane. What is sacred? Sacred is something which represents the whole society. And what is profane? Profane is individual everyday life which is lived within the parameters of the sacred. Now let us come to Durkheim himself. What allows a person to go beyond the animal nature is the most common religion that imposes a specific normative system and is a way to regulate behavior. Then Durkheim said, left unchecked, the individualism leads to a lifetime of seeking to slake selfish desires, slake S-L-A-K-E, slake selfish desires, which leads to unhappiness and despair. And then he says, on the other hand, collective conscience, or in French conscience, serves as a check on the will of the individual. This is created by the cultural process of socialization and education. This is created by the cultural process of socialization and education, or by institutions like family, church, and the other formal institutions which are empowered by society as a sui generis, that is sovereign phenomenon or social fact. I am repeating. On the other hand, collective conscience serves as a check on the will of the individual, or profane. This is conscience, this collective conscience or collective consciousness is created by the cultural process of socialization and education. Now, here he is referring to education as a process, not education as an institution. He is not referring to school, college and university. He is just referring to socialization and education, and how this cultural process is done, how it is done. It is done, this socialization, this education is done by institutions like family, church, and other formal institutions which are empowered by society as a sui generic phenomenon. Sui, S-U-I, generic, G-E-N-E-R-I-C. Sui generic in French can be loosely translated as sovereign. S-O-V-E-R-E-I-G-N. As a sui generic phenomenon or social fact. The division of labor is a formal institution. The division of labor is a formal, institutionalized process of socialization. The division of labor for Durkheim is a formal, institutionalized process of socialization through which norms, values, and ethical frameworks of a particular community in terms of Ferdinand Tönnies, community in terms of Ferdinand Tönnies, or society in terms of Aristotle, or solidarity according to Durkheim. These are the same thing. But there is a final, very, very, very subtle difference between community and society, which we will refer to when we deal with mechanical and organic solidarity or community and society, is transmitted from one generation to the next generation. The division of labor at a deeper structural level is not only a process of socialization which can be observed at the surface structural level, rather it is also a particular type of cultural medium of communication. Thank you.